Welcome to today's session. I'm thrilled to be talking to Stacey Laws today. Stacey's head teacher at First Base Ipswich and is going to talk to us a little bit today about the process of alternative provision curriculum design. So Stacey, you've got a very specific curriculum pathway. Can you talk to us about the pathway that your curriculum is designed to support?
So this curriculum is for our Springboard Pathway. We're an early years key stage 1 pupil referral unit. So our Springboard Pathway is for children who have been referred. They come to us 2 days a week for 12 weeks. So their actual placement length is only 24 days. They're pupils who are currently attending mainstream, and the idea is that they can stay in mainstream and be successful, but that they just need an intensive short-term intervention to enable that.
So that's a very specific sort of pathway, and clearly that means you've had to think really carefully about your curriculum rather than perhaps just taking one off the shelf. Can you just explain why you feel it's so important that for this pathway you have a bespoke offer?
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons it needed to be bespoke. Firstly, because our pupils come to us with a variety of different needs, different starting points, different gaps in their learning. Lots of them haven't been engaged properly in mainstream learning and don't see themselves as learners. Our curriculum needs to allow for children in a mixed age class. So we can have children from reception year 1, year 2, and with abilities that span objectives from development matters all the way to greater depth at year 2. They also have a wide range of SEN and SEMH needs that we have to account for within the curriculum. Another reason for it being bespoke is that they're only here, like I said, for 24 days. So we had to really think about the biggest impact that we could have in the most fundamental areas of their academic development and their SEMH development in that really short space of time.
So that's a really tall order for any curriculum, isn't it, to offer something that can have huge impact in a very time limited pathway in a placement that's designed for pupils who really need something quite different to mainstream education. So take us back to the beginning then. How did you go about designing your curriculum?
We were lucky that we had a starting point, because although the Springboard Pathway is new for us this year, we had a kind of similar pathway last year. So we did have a pathway last year where children attended for 2 days a week, but generally their placements lasted for 2 terms and possibly longer. So we already had the basis of a curriculum model, which was dual placement with a mainstream school, but that worked over a longer time. So we used that as the basis for our Springboard curriculum now. One of the main things we needed to look at changing was obviously the placement length was much shorter and how we were going to achieve that. The curriculum that we already had was based on a concentric model. So from reviewing our curriculum last year, we knew what had worked well, what hadn't worked well. The concentric model had worked really well for our children, enables them to spend not too long on an area of learning, but rather revisit it frequently and to keep building on that knowledge. So our children don't get bored of doing the same thing, thinking that they've already done it, thinking that they're not successful, and that's why we have to keep doing it, but enables us to come back to it in little chunks so they feel successful and we keep building on it. So when we reviewed our curriculum last year, we looked at the concentric model that was really beneficial to our children. We looked at what had worked really well for them in English, the writing that they'd made the best progress in, what had worked well in maths. I talked to teachers, support staff. We also do pupil surveys with the children, so we were able to get their views on the curriculum last year and what they'd enjoyed. So that was like our starting point for the curriculum.
So that's a huge undertaking then, and to fit a curriculum essentially that spans 3 years into, I think you said 24 days. You've obviously had to make some difficult decisions about what you do include and decisions about what content you're going to omit. How did you decide what was the most important?
The first thing we looked at was our timetable for the 2 days, so the 24 days, 2 days a week, and actually those 2 days a week what children would access. we wanted to build their fundamental knowledge and skills in literacy and numeracy. So we spend our mornings doing phonics and then English, which for us includes reading, writing, oracy, and phonics, sorry. And then I knew there were 4 things. and then maths as well. So, but within those areas, obviously we couldn't teach the whole maths curriculum in 24 maths lessons. So we looked at our model from last year, which we had based our curriculum around fundamental key skills for the children. We had to then, for this year, slim it down even further. So we decided to base our maths on number and place value, and then number, addition and subtraction. We felt that just the number really is the key building blocks for the children, and we get such a variety of ability levels even just within number for our children, that's where we wanted to concentrate on and build their skills. And then in English we looked at our curriculum from last year, and for the children who come to first base, often writing is their biggest trigger. So they're not fans of English and they're not fans of picking up a pencil and writing. But a big part of our job is engaging them in that to put them successfully back into mainstream so that they will pick up a pencil and write. So we wanted to make sure that what we were asking them to write was going to be something that really captured them, that they engaged with, that they were able to make progress with. And from reviewing our curriculum last year, that was every unit of work, it was instruction writing and story writing. So we focused our writing curriculum on those areas, and then with the maths and the English, our curriculum, we've kept it very concentric. So they have topic themes which last for 3 weeks, and the instructions and the story swap over each 3-week unit, and the same with the number, place value, and then the number, addition and subtraction, so that they keep coming back to things they've learnt before.
That sounds very impressive, and particularly thinking about some of the implications for committing that learning to the long-term memory. Clearly those decisions that you're making are deliberate and conscious, and also allow you the opportunity to judge not just what pupils have learned, but what they've retained. So I'm interested in how you make those judgments and how you judge whether a pupil's being successful within the pathway. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what mechanisms you have to support you with that?
Yep, so we do quite regular assessment with the children. Every lesson that they access, the teacher will write a learning log for that lesson that will have their learning objectives on it, and our teachers plan individually for the children. So within a lesson it will be the same area of learning, but the 6 children in that class could all have very different objectives depending on their own ability level. On that learning log, the children self-evaluate their learning. The adult who's been working with them will write comments about what support they had, how well they were able to access the objectives and achieve them. So that's in the children's books for every lesson that they access. At the end of a 3-week unit, the teachers then collate that assessment data onto assessment grids where they can map out a child's progress through objectives. So tracking their academic learning is one way that we judge how successful they are, but that's only really how successful they are in one area of their academic learning and in what we're teaching. So that's not our only judgment of whether a placement is successful. We also really closely track and monitor their personal, social, emotional development. We look at how well they're achieving their individual behaviour targets, how well they're achieving within our core values system for their character development. We also deliver outreach to mainstream schools every week, so the staff from First Base can actually see the children in mainstream, can support the adults in mainstream to implement the strategies that we're using and to transfer that success to mainstream, because well, ultimately that's where we want them to be successful, is so that they can reintegrate and stay within mainstream. And then I would say our communication with parents as well lets us know that it's successful. When parents ring us and say they've been miserable at school for months and they actually came home and told me what they did at First Base today, we know we're kind of maybe a little bit on the right track.
What a broad system for judging success of a placement you have, Stacey. That's very impressive, and certainly allows you the opportunity to really drill into the value that each placement has added for an individual. So I know as a fellow book lover, it's been really important to you to make sure that reading was absolutely central to this provision. And it's not so much about what goes on in reading lessons, but what sits more broadly. Can you just talk to me about what you did to make sure that reading sat fairly and squarely at the heart of your curriculum?
Yep, so all of our 3-week units across an academic year have a focus text at the centre of the unit. So all of the children are immediately engaged in a topic with a book. That is a change from our curriculum. Last year we had a mixture of books, just like kind of topic titles, so they do like Seaside. We had a mixture of film clips, but actually on the whole, although our children don't always love to read themselves, they do love books and stories and being read to. So having a text as a focus for a starter works really well for them. We also, reading is a part of lots of our days, not just the reading session. So our reading corners are part of settling time, they're part of choosing time throughout the day. We have specific reading sessions within the curriculum where the children will access a carousel of activities around reading. We have story time at the end of the day. So there's lots of different ways they can access books. We also make sure that the children experience diversity in what they read. So we have like fiction, non-fiction, traditional tales, heritage texts, books from other cultures, books about world issues. So if a child isn't interested in reading stories, there's lots of other texts available to engage them.
That is amazingly rich, and certainly sounds like the sort of place that I want to spend my time. So as well as having linked texts across your literature spine for each of your units, I'm aware that you've done a huge amount of work around building cultural capital for your pupils. Can you talk a little bit about how and why that was so important for you?
Yep, so we designed our curriculum to be experiential, to help engage pupils and to raise cultural capital. So we have lots of different trips and visitors all through the curriculum. Although most of our pupils live in the Ipswich area, in the past we've been on trips like within the local area, so like to Rendlesham Forest or to Felixstowe, and we've taken pupils who have never been to a forest before and never been to a beach before. So it was really important to us that the children were able to access those experiences through the curriculum, and that they were experiencing the locality that they live in.
So why is that local context so important, do you think, Stacey?
Just because it's where the children live, it's the world around them, the community that they're living in. I think it's important when we go on those trips and they meet people for their experience of world of work as well. So when they go to the bakery, they see that people work in the bakery around the corner from their house. Yeah, just for them to experience where they live and what is on their doorstep around them.
I think that notion of really connecting young people to the area that they live in gives them a sense of identity, and it strikes me that through the cultural capital experiences in broadening those experiences that children are exposed to, but also connecting them to the local area, it can't help but to embed aspiration within those young people that access this pathway. So you know, in the dream world, of course, we'd write something and never have to write it again. But inevitably, as you've said already, there'll be a process of curriculum review. How do you intend to refine your curriculum pathway over the year ahead?
So we know there are parts of our curriculum that worked really well last year, and we've built on them for this year, but that's not to say they're going to work well again this year, because it is a different pathway. The children are here for a lot shorter time, so it'll be interesting, first of all, monitoring the new curriculum to see if those areas that were successful last year are still successful on a shorter term placement. We'll also be monitoring pupil engagement and progress to ensure that the 12-week model is meeting their needs. It has been quite a task designing a curriculum to ensure progress and needs are being met in 24 days. So yeah, we'll be monitoring that and possibly having to refine it. We'll also be considering how successfully the children are reintegrating to mainstream at the end of that very short placement, and where that's not as successful as we might like, what we can do to adapt our curriculum to further support the needs that the pupils are still showing. As well, so in the mornings we're doing English, maths, phonics, but we have an afternoon of sports, which was really important for us to keep in, partly for cultural capital, partly for character development for our children. And then the other afternoon we've decided to dedicate to individual interventions, which is a change for us from last year. So it will be interesting to closely monitor the impact of those interventions for the children and see if they are having a huge difference for them.
Fascinating. I can't wait to hear how this pathway is executed and what the impact is of such an exciting curriculum model. So let me ask you finally, Stacey, on a personal note, obviously we've spent a significant amount of this year being disrupted. How are you feeling about getting started with this new curriculum?
So I have to say, we never really felt that disrupted at First Base, because lots of our children still attended. Our curriculum was slightly disrupted, and we were upset about that because we had a new curriculum last year that we were very excited to run, and then come February, March, it did go slightly askew, but lots of our pupils still attended, and we were still able to, on the whole, offer our curriculum. It's nice to have them all definitely back for the time being and accessing a new curriculum. The new pathway is shorter for us, but exciting to see if we can. It's a challenge to rise to meet their needs and successfully reintegrate them into their mainstream settings. I would say myself and the teachers and the support staff, we love working on a curriculum, and we like it when the children engage with what we're doing and the learning. So yeah, everyone's, I would say, pretty excited to have another new curriculum and another chance to have an impact on the children.
That's brilliant. And Stacey, the excitement just oozes out of you. I have absolutely no doubt that you and your team will rise to this particular challenge. A huge thank you to you for talking to me today. I know that many will find this enormously interesting, and I just can't wait to hear how it goes over the next 12 weeks. Many thanks.
Thank you.